Hey, good morning. Welcome to the Board of County Commissioners Agenda Setting Work Session for February 5, 2019. I'm John Hutchings, the chair of the board, and to my right is
Ty Menser, Commissioner District 3.
To my left,
Gary Edwards,
Vice Chair, and County Manager Ramiro Chavez. Lavanita, go ahead.
Lavanita Beaumont, clerk of the board.
Way over here. Are you mic'd up? No. And we have our PIOs.
Brian Dominique, Public Information Officer for the board.
Excuse me.
Megan Porter, Public Information Supervisor.
Robin Gortz, Executive Assistant.
So thank you. Excuse me. We're going to start with the agenda for the agenda setting. And the first thing we're going to do is review the agenda set, or the agenda for this afternoon, 2 o'clock Board of County Commissioners meeting for February the 5th. And we'll start with, at 2 o'clock, we'll call the meeting to order and start with the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Vice Chair Commissioner Gary Edwards. And then we'll do approval of the minutes and approval of the agenda, reverse that order. And then we go into proclamations. And today we have a proclamation.
Yeah, Commissioners, you have a proclamation celebrating African American History Month. And Mr. Alonjo Tuchala, he is the CEO of the Alafia. Alafia.
Uh-huh.
Got it backwards.
It is Alafia, and he's just a giant of a man.
He is an incredible person, big personality, and I believe big heart. So that will be a great way for you to celebrate, and him attending the proclamation to receive it.
Now, you've met him, Gary.
yes, I have.
Have you met him yet, Ty?
Nope.
And you haven't been through the Alafia tour down Tumwater?
It's worth going to.
It's an eye-opener. He'll invite you when he's here. I'll make sure he does. It's an eye-opener.
And in addition to seeing the incredible production they have in there, the history as to how the company came to be is just incredible.
Oh, yeah, he's a true human being.
Yeah.
I mean, just a genuine man.
Absolutely.
For what he does, humanitarian. Okay, is that the only proclamation then?
Yes.
All right, then we have an opportunity for the public to address the board. Anyone aware of anybody coming in for any reason?
Yes, a couple of items. You may receive public testimony related to Leigh St. Clair, although you have a public hearing today at 5 in the afternoon. You may be receiving public testimony on that regard. And in fact, you already receive a couple of written testimonies related to that, and copies of those testimonies are with you, and we'll share this with Tim so he can highlight that as well this afternoon during his presentation. Also, I received this morning an email from Mr. John Pettit.
Mm-hmm.
I'll hand it over this email to you. It was addressed to me. He will provide public testimony this afternoon asking my resignation or removal as a county manager.
Well, thank you.
Where is you said there were letters about Lake St. Clair?
Yes, I believe.
They will be on their chairs after our meeting.
Okay, so. And I'm going to read this just for the public, and this is related to the follow-up the last meeting where I asked Mr. Terry Ballard to provide specific information related to previous testimony making allegations of a staff member here in Thurston County. So as I read, it said this: Dear Mr. Chavez, I'm writing to make you aware that today I will be requesting your resignation and removal as county manager of Thurston County. I was extremely disappointed that you used the position as a forum to intimidate and abuse Mr. Terry Ballard for disclosure of information as to actions of misinterpretation of information to the county commissioners. You made a public request for the information which implied his previous statements lack validity and content. I personally am aware that you have previously received the information, and I have provided to you and the commissioners through direct delivery and emails. It was profoundly unprofessional to make the request publicly, which clearly had no apparent purpose other than discredit retired Master Sergeant Ballard and to discourage further public comment from him. freedom of speech is a right we have as citizens in this country. Your action was abuse to Mr. Baller's rights. Under the county employee policy, abuse is unacceptable for any employee of the county and may be disciplined up to dismissal. I suggested it to be appropriate for you to contact Mr. Baller and apologize for your actions, both personally and publicly. On a personal note, I'm extremely disappointed by your actions. I believe that you to be a man of integrity. Mr. Baller's personal phone is blah, 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 and the email as stated in here. That will be a good place to start with explanations and apologies. So you will be receiving that testimony this afternoon.
This is a public document.
Yes.
Then go ahead and give his phone number and his email address.
I was trying to protect that, but
All right, I understand. Thank you. All right, so he'll potentially be coming in today?
yep.
All right. Questions, comments?
No.
All right, county manager's update.
I don't have any follow-up to any public testimony you received last week, but I certainly will report on the past activities the commission had this past week.
All right. So we're moving into item number 3 on the agenda, consent items A through C. And the first one is from the treasurer regarding the February board write-offs of uncollectible personal taxes.
Yes.
Personalty taxes.
Yeah, you review this item. This under RCW 8456240. There is a yearly write-off for uncollected taxes. And in this particular case, the uncollected taxes, also known as personalty, is on the amount of $8,594.95. And that is of mobile homes that have been destroyed in the amount of $3,304.16, and also business accounts that perhaps no longer exist, or they have no assets, or the business closed. And that amounts to $5,290.79. Again, for a total of $8,594.95.
All right. Questions?
No, sir.
No.
Okay. Letter B, 3B, Commissioners, approval of the Board of County Commissioners work session summaries, a whole bunch of them.
Yep.
Any questions on those?
Should I be abstaining since I have known?
Yeah, I think yes, you should.
But then if it's on the consent, I can't.
So we'll move that to the department.
Yeah,
Thank
good
you.
point. Thank you. Well, but you wouldn't be able to vote on them, but we would still have a majority if we left it on consent with a motion and a second and a vote. Does that matter?
I think just taking it out of consent is probably makes sense because you make a single motion to approve A through C.
Yeah, I would want to consent to the other items.
Okay. Okay.
We'll move to the county managers. Yeah,
Good. Thank you.
thank you.
And then letter C, Auditor Financial Services, approve the voucher list. Everybody had a chance to look at the vouchers?
I'm good.
Yeah, okay. All right, number 4, department items. First is emergency services, purchase of Dell servers and associated software from Medic One.
Yeah, this is a request for the commission to consider approving the purchase of 2 servers related to Medic One, and that is in the amount of $136,659.03 with the Dell Company, the brand Dell, through the NASPO value point, which is listed on the Washington State Department of Enterprise Services. Under normal circumstances, based on the amount, we have to go through a normal bidding process. Since this particular vendor is part of the Washington State Department of Enterprise Services as a vendor, so that will allow us to just go without any bidding process. And that is within the procurement regulations. So at this point, this is item is related aligned to the Thurston County Strategic Plan Initiative 8. And this particular amount is already included in 2019 budget that you approved last December.
All right, questions? Oh, got it. Thank you, Kurt, anyway. And number 5, commissioners and county managers items. Already?
Yeah, you will have 2 items.
Jeez.
We'll move the approval of the minutes from last year into this area for you to take a vote, and also Robin Campbell has it on it for you.
All right. Will that be A or B?
We'll put this A and the other one B.
Okay, so this one then is the Thurston County Public Defense budget increase.
Yeah.
So in closing the fiscal year, the Office of Public Defense has received invoices in excess of their appropriation authority. And these are invoices from 2016 and 2017 cases that extended into 2018. There has been every effort made to receive the bills timely, and they're just now coming in, and then the department has had extraordinary costs with aggravated murder cases, and all these things have combined, and an increasing caseload. All these things have combined to drive their expenses above the appropriation. The board has a clause, if you will, in the budget that allows the county manager, with the board's authorization, to transfer authority from unspent non-departmental into a office or department that has general fund appropriation to make the budget whole, and that's what we're asking you to do.
Okay, and so he's dealing with quite a bit of old baggage, old stuff.
Yes.
And when was he appointed director?
He
18,
was
17?
appointed in just about, I'll say probably May of 2017.
17, okay.
Yeah.
Questions?
No.
Questions? Okay, good, thank you, Robin. And then commissioners report on their assignments and committees, and county manager, our schedule. And that adjourns the BoCC meeting. Then we move into keep going to the public hearing at 5 o'clock.
Yeah, 5 o'clock, you have a public hearing. Will you receive public testimony on a proposal related to Lake St. Clair? Right now, Lake St. Clair has a restriction of 5 miles an hour for the operating vessels in that lake. That restriction is lifted when the water levels go below 69.5. And at that point, there is no restrictions. But also there's that restriction that all the operating vessels will be within 200 feet buffer from shore. That is not part of your proposal today. So the proposal before you today, where you'll be receiving public testimony, is to bring the threshold of the 5 miles an hour to 69.9. That will be just about 4 inches higher. And what allows is, in practical terms, extend the recreation activities, perhaps by a month, depending how the water levels fluctuate within that lake. Tim Wilson from Public Works will be this afternoon giving you a little bit of a background, walking you through the history, because there has been a lot of ordinance and resolutions related to this lake, and he will walk you through that as well. And also he will make a comment. I believe last week you asked as to how many residents are part of this lake, and he will highlight that as well this afternoon. For your consideration, there is 2 motions for you to consider. One is to close the public hearing, and the other one, depending on the public testimony, is to move and approve the proposal. This is something that you do not have to do. There's just an option for you, depending on the public testimony. And also, depending on the public testimony, you can delay that action to a later date where you have the opportunity to have a discussion based on the public testimony that you might receive this afternoon.
All right.
Who's measuring the lake, or how do people know that it's dropped and they can go?
There is a
both sides?
gauge. There is a gauge in there. They gives you the elevation of the lake.
And that's communicated somehow to
Yeah.
the residents that want to boat?
Lake elevations. Yes.
Microphone, and please tell us who you are. Thank you,
Sorry, I'm
Tim.
very excited.
Yeah, I can
Good morning,
tell.
Commissioners. Tim Wilson, Water Resources Manager, Public Works. So, yes, elevations this has typically been done by CPID to date. The Water Quality Monitoring Group monitors the elevations out there. I can't speak exactly to how that is communicated to the lake residents. I can have that information by this afternoon, but I can't speak to that.
That's a good question, yeah.
And it's really a change of 6 inches is what I understood, because it's 69.5 to 69.99 feet, right?
It's 0.4 of a foot, so it would equate to roughly 5 inches.
.5 to .99 is 0.5 of a foot.
It's actually 0.9. There was an iteration that came through at
Oh.
0.99 inches. It's
Yeah,
actually, the
it's
proposal
0.9.
is 0.9.
Okay.
Gary?
No, I
Question?
have no questions.
Why such an odd number?
That's a good question. Ramiro, could you help with that?
So in this lake has a long history, and the fluctuation of the water levels has been over the years increasing, and increasing in a way that some of the local residents really have approached the county on many occasions as to how we need to address the increase of the water levels as a whole. Since this lake has its subsurface contributions, there is not a creek, the contributes is subsurface streams. And also this lake does not have any outlets. It's just somewhat of a tub effect. So, so what happens is during the winter months, when the rains are obviously heavier, you see the lake level is going beyond the 69.9, going, I know, in some instances, over 72 feet, as I remember. And so that really has, over the years, has caused an effect to some of the residents who have, amenities on the lake shore. And as the water increases, they have that concern. And this is a very difficult issue, I believe. There is so many different, ideas as to why this is the causation of this. On one instance, the city of Olympia used to draw water from one of the McAllister Springs. And one idea is, as soon as the city of Olympia stopped drawing the water for potable water, the lakes increase. But really there is not a technical report that in fact pinpoint the cause as to why the lake has gone up over the years. And it's very difficult, even for the county, we don't have perhaps the responsibility, nor even the means, to address that larger issue. And as part of the solutions at some point, they were proposing pumping the lake and bringing a system of pipes just to start controlling the water levels. That is, from the engineering point of view, at least in my opinion, is impractical and is not financially feasible to do anything like that. And that goes back to, even if something like that is to be considered, who is going to pay for that? And that is where the financial obligation comes back. I'm giving you the whole history on this. And some of the suggestions that perhaps the residents may consider forming a special use district as to how they can start managing the water levels. So through that process, because they have seen that fluctuation of the water levels over the years, it was a year back in, I can remember, early 2000s, where the water levels was going. So it was a concern by the residents at that time. I believe during the winter months of that year, the water came very high, which they requested the commissioners at that time to establish a emergency ordinance. And the emergency ordinance evolved, and Tim will walk you through the different times in which the commissioners established the different ordinance. So through that point, there was a lot of, the speed limit of the boats was part of that conversation. And the reason behind that is the wake that those boats have, they start eroding the shore of the lake. So it was from 70 feet to 65.5. There was a lot of that back and forth when I was reading the history of that. So again, it was a series of ordinance the commission at that point established. One that was 69.9, then lowered to 65.5. It was at some point it was 70, I believe. So and the last ordinance when back in 2013, when they established, it was more of just trying to find, I believe, and this is just my perception of the process, to reach a compromise with all the property owners on the lake. There was not really I would like to say, a technical decision as to why it was 65.5. I just personally couldn't find the reason behind that. It was just, I believe, a matter of compromise at that point.
If it's going up and down, then like we're sort of setting an arbitrary number that next year might not be appropriate, because I mean, we're going to keep doing this every year, trying to figure out the right number and just sort of guesstimating.
Well, I would just add that there has been a lot of very good work that's been done recently by that water quality group in CPED to evaluate the structures that are on the lake. There's roughly 500 structures, and the percentage of those structures that could potentially be impacted at the current elevation and at the proposed elevation. Currently, I believe the number is 14 structures, mainly outbuildings, that could be impacted as is, and the proposal would increase that from 14 structures to 18 structures. So it is that balance, and at the same time, if you look at the 2012 to 2018 elevation average, the change will increase recreation days by 60 to 120 days per year. So it's really that balance of managing opportunities for recreation versus those changes in structures.
So one thing I saw in the historical memos that caught my attention was the fact that some of the residents were saying it's really these certain kind of boats, they call them wake boats or bladder boats or something. I don't know what this even means, but they said that it's really normal boating at speed would be fine, but it's these kind of boats that are designed to create waves for, I guess, for people to jump off them or whatever, that if those were restricted, we wouldn't have an issue. So I'm just wondering, how are those kind of boats identifiable? Are they, is it one A or B, or are there hybrids? I mean, I understand there'd be difficulty to make the rule more complicated. It would be more difficult to enforce, but it just seemed like I don't even know what these boats are, and if they're easily identifiable as a thing that you could say you can't use that kind of boat at this water level.
I know there has been some discussion regarding that, and there are several lakes throughout the county that are having issues with bladder boats. Bladder boats do create a significantly larger wake, but it wasn't considered as part of this proposal.
Go ahead, Gary, then. You want to jump in? He knows all about bladder boats, too. It's not the first time we've heard that term.
I do think that bladder boats are detrimental to most all of the shorelines of all the lakes. in the county. I think that's going to be a topic for a different time that will be coming up fairly soon. I would like to clarify one thing the county manager said, and you probably just misspoke on this, just so the record is right.
Please do.
From a surface water issue, there is one creek that flows in there, and that's Eaton Creek. And the residents of the lake have made allegations that when Olympia purchased the water rights for a farm on the upper end of Eaton Creek, in which Olympia came up with some study that they needed to put more water into the lake when they were drawing down some of the wells at McAllister Springs. I don't know all the particulars, but therein lies a bit of the problem, as perceived by lake residents.
As perceived.
As
Thank you.
perceived. So there is a creek that flows in with a substantial amount of water during the winter months, during the rainy season. So I just wanted to make sure that, I don't know if you said there was or was not.
No,
something.
you're correct. Thank you for the clarification. And I was referring to the McAllister Springs
Yes.
that actually flows into where the city of
But
Olympia
no
used to
no outflow from that lake.
and no outlet to the lake. But thank you for the clarification. Let me go back to the bladder boats, and for Commissioner Minster's benefit, that conversation was a lot of conversation related to that. And one of the cautionary items is when the commission may consider restricting boating activities, you may want to consider that on a larger context for all the lakes, because every single lake has an opportunity per se. There are other lakes. The commissioners would love to stop jet skis, and we heard, and some of the lakes came over and making that argument from the commissioners. So when the commission, would like to, and this is coming up for your consideration, hopefully this year, putting restrictions on vessels on any particular lake, I will encourage you for you to look at a policy level as to how you're going to be putting any restrictions across all the lakes in the county, if that is the wish that you like to do. I really will suggest that perhaps not taking that task on this particular proposal, because that really is going to become more complex, because the rest will come. And there are other lakes. If you take an action, perhaps you set a precedent of restricting any vessels in any lakes. And again, there's many other lakes. They have the same issues, not just with bladder boats, but also with other vessels as well. So.
I understand that, although I did notice, and it's not in front of me, but if I remember right, this lake is the smallest lake on which there are speed restrictions, or it's the smallest lake of a group of lakes that have motorboating or something like that. I mean, it might be it might be particularly affected in a way that the bigger lakes might not. I don't know, but
Yeah,
it caught my attention.
It's a small kettle lake. I don't know that it's the smallest. I could have that information by then.
It's in the memo. It's just on my desk. It was like it was identified as there's like 6 lakes on which there are certain types of restrictions. This is the smallest of that group, which is therefore probably why there's a little bit higher impact than there would be on a bigger lake.
Very well could be.
Yeah. But I understand the point about trying to keep the policy consistent.
Tim, you said there are 14 structures currently that are impacted or could be impacted, but that swells to 18 if we raise the limit?
That's correct, and that's based again on the work that CPED has done. They took a very thorough look at that.
And I forgot the word you used, but it sounded like predominantly they are outbuildings, but how many are homes?
I
Or
don't have
dwellings?
that information.
Don't know.
I can check back with them prior to that.
Okay. And I would imagine that, I mean, this is erosion versus recreation, it sounds like.
Erosion or potential property damage based by the from the wakes.
Yeah, I lumped that in there, versus recreation.
Correct.
Okay, and I would expect there'll be a large turnout.
Yeah,
today.
that is why we left it for, set it up for 5 o'clock. I would expect you will have a significant amount of citizens provide
Wow.
testimony.
Anything further?
No, sir.
Anything further? Good, thank you very much. That closes the public hearing then. Again, we have the option of just shutting it down or deciding today or deciding at a future date what we're going to do. Moving on in the agenda to the February 12th Board of County Commissioners meeting. And that will start at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and the Pledge of Allegiance led by Commissioner Menser, and then approval of the agenda and minutes. And it's a bit early, or premature, for the opportunity to address the opportunity for the public to address the board with any certainty.
At this point, I don't have anything
Okay.
you might be receiving.
County manager's update the same, I would imagine.
Yes, I will follow up with any comments you might receive today.
All right, then let's go through the 3 consent items, A through C. A is Public Works, establishing a position and a pay class pay plan.
Yeah, this is a recommendation for your consideration to approve a part-time position, half-time, and this is the Procurement and Contract Specialist 1 with an end date of December 31st, 2020. And the cost will be $3,042 a month, and this will be covered by salary savings. So a little bit of history. We had this position fill, the Procurement and Contract Specialist 2, and that took the department to find that person close to a year because it's a very specific set of skills. Unfortunately, the person who was holding that position unexpectedly passed away, maybe 2 months ago. And that has created a big void in what we need to do in the department. So having the history of how difficult it was to go through the recruitment process and continue to have the need, I think just having a part-time position, in this case, perhaps is going to help the department to continue on with what they need to do in terms of the asset management proposal. And again, this will be covered by salary savings, and there's no additional budget requested. It will come from the solid waste fund, tip and fees.
All right, question?
No, sir.
All right, that takes care of that one. A. B is Human Resources, an agreement between the county and sheriff.
As a pause, Commissioners, and also we're going to start changing a little bit as to how the departments and offices come to this type of requests. I had a larger conversation with the executive team yesterday where we're going to put some a procedure in place so everybody understands what is it that we're going to do when you consider any additional positions like this or any, in my case, temporary pay increases the county manager approved. There has been a little bit, at least from my point of view, a little bit inconsistent as to how that has been approached in the past. So we're trying to put some consistency and some structure. So this position came, obviously, before those news were delivered to the management team. So, just give you a perspective on that.
No.
All right. And then the Human Resources, the bargaining agreement between the county and the, I imagine it's the Sheriff's Office captains?
Yeah, this is for your consideration to approve a contract with the Thurston County Captains Association. And again, this is a 3-year contract. You may remember you approved a contract with the sheriff deputies 2 weeks ago, and again with the same terms. There is a cost of living included on the 3-year contract tied to the CPI. There is a minimum and a maximum within that context, which allows to have some predictability as to how we manage in those contracts. And this is more of a lessons learned. When we went through in 2018 with the Sheriff's Deputies Association, where they had a wage reopener on their contract, meaning, the cost of living needed to be renegotiated in 2018. That really didn't go well. They ended up going to binding arbitration, and the result of that was in December. So it was a lot of effort in 2018 having that clause in that contract, and I think it was a concerted effort by the county as well as the association to reach a 3-year contract and having some predictable parameters within that contract as well. So this is a follow-up to that.
All right. Questions, comments?
No, sir.
No.
All right, and C, it'll be the vouchers, whatever we get then. And then department items, number 4, treasurer investment software purchase, Jeffrey Gadman.
Yeah, the county treasurer, Jeff Cadman, will come to you and ask for your consideration to approve the purchase of an investment software for $57,989.25. And they will be utilizing the Washington State Master Contract number 06016. And again, that will allow us to forego the normal bidding process. And that is acceptable within the procurement policies that we have in place. This also has a yearly maintenance of $7,600 a month. This item is consistent with the Thurston County Initiative, Strategic Initiative number 14. And all this has been included on the budget, and it has been reviewed by the IT subcommittee. And the subcommittee has also issued a recommendation for approval.
Anything?
No, sir.
And talk with the treasurer. It sounds like he really needs it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. And number 5, public works, uncollectible public works.
So before I get to the details of this item, let me take you back to maybe early 2000, maybe I think it was late 17, early 2018, where we had a non-collectible debt of just about $1.1 million, $1.1 million, and that was generated from the Parent Pay program within juvenile court. And there was a lot of history behind that. There was years in the making, as you may recall. What I see years in the making, there is a lot of fees that at that time there was imposed to those individuals that perhaps they couldn't pay anyway. So the collecting agency was not effective, obviously, to collect all the funds. So every year there was a loss, and every year was something that was not collected. So over the years, it accumulated to that amount. And at least Commissioner Hutchins, Commissioner Edwards recall the action that you took just to retire that entire debt. So as a result of taking that action, which created an impact to the general fund in a way, you send a letter to the Finance Committee, which is formed by the county auditor, the county treasurer, and the county manager, asking them to really take a closer look and work with all the offices and departments that if there is any uncollectible debt, because uncollectible debt is part of the business. Just that's how it is. As you consider taking an action today in uncollectible taxes, there's also uncollectible debt related to fees. So through that process, we have been working with the departments at the committee level as to how they need to be proactive in retiring those debts as we move along. This is the first one that you will see. We have been working with Superior Court and other funds. So we're proactively working based on the direction by the board for us to, the committee, the Finance Committee, to take a closer look to this. So this proposal before you is the result of some of those efforts. The Public Works Department had a conversation with the Finance Committee, and the Finance Committee recommended just to come and give the board a cumulative number of uncollectible accounts. And this is related to solid waste collection at the different sites. Some of the commercial outfits that used to have an account no longer exist. And so there's uncollectible that there's nowhere we can find where those individuals are. Also, there is some water and sewer utility services that we've not been able to collect. And when an individual doesn't pay the bills, we send to a collections agency, and the collection agency do their best, but they cannot collect all the fees. So at some point, we just need to retire the bad debt. So this is the for your recommendation, and the amount of total of $84,359 they will not be able to collect. I know that I give you a lot of history on this, but.
Yeah, Gary.
I can see where if a business goes out of business, for an example, and has an outstanding account, and they're not in business anymore, you can't get that. But what about sewage and water? Don't you usually do an attachment to a lien against the property where that service is provided, and then when the property sells, that's when we get our recovery?
Yeah, and so, yeah, I think that's part of it, and Jennifer will walk you through some of the details, but also there's some individuals who rent those homes. And usually the account goes to the individuals who use the water.
Well,
So, and that's how the nuances of that.
I don't know all the particulars, but somebody owns that property. And I'd like to see that the county taxpayers get reimbursed.
Jennifer Walker, Public Works Director. So just to put it in context, of the $84,000 for the water and sewer write-offs, it's $419.53.
Oh.
So that's one.
Okay.
But what you're saying is, and it's very, very valid, Commissioner.
Okay.
One of the things that we have done is we have better documented our processes. In prior years, the information was sent to the tenant and not the landlord. Now, so some of these, the landlord may not have been aware, and so we have established that process now, so both are getting that notice. So as the owner, they'll know if their tenants aren't paying, but it's a very small amount of them.
Good enough. Enough said.
I just want to be assured that all due diligence is exhausted to try to recover some of that $84,000.
Yes. So one of the items on here that I will point out that we're going back to the collection agency and asking them to look further into this is one of their write-offs on here is $7,400. I don't know, do you want me to say who it is? Can I say?
It doesn't need to be.
Okay.
Doesn't need to be.
We believe that they're still in business, and so we're asking them to go back and take a look at that and explain to us why they haven't been able to collect on that.
All right, and Jennifer, this says 2018. This is just for last year.
No, this is
No,
for
this years.
2012
So it goes way
and
back.
beyond.
This is kind of straightening things out.
Yeah, we're just trying to making sure that we don't continue to accumulate those bad debts, and all of a sudden becomes, as opposed to 84,000, 10 years down the road becomes 500,000. So that's what we're trying to manage that a little bit closer.
Okay. Thank you
So
for
we've
that.
actively been trying to collect on these.
All right. Anything further? No?
No, sir.
Most attorneys' offices carry hundreds and hundreds. That's actually pretty impressive, if that's that much period of time of unpaid debt.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Did you have any questions about the juvenile hall debt that we wrote off last year? It was 1-point-something million?
1.1.
1.1 million? Do you have any questions about that? Because that was pretty extensive that we went through.
That came up in an earlier meeting.
Okay.
I don't recall the details, but I felt like my questions were answered at that
Okay.
time. I didn't want to.
And that also went back a lot of years.
That went back quite some time, yeah. All right, that takes care of that. Now we move on to number 6, commissioners' items, and then our updates.
Yeah.
And nothing we can do about that now. So, and then on the 12th of February, we'll convene the Board of Health meeting, and we'll get through that real quick. We got time. Call the meeting to order on February 12th. It's Tuesday at 3:30 p.m. The Board of Health, and do the approval of the agenda and the minutes, and then proclamations. And you just magically appeared. Wonderful. We have a proclamation. Go ahead.
Yes.
Shelley.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Shelley Slaughter, Director of Thurston County Public Health and Social Services. And to my right is Clerk of the Board of Health, Lydia Hodgkinson. And yes, we are here to go over the Board of Health agenda as we discussed in our planning session and you have online. Right away, I want to start with an amendment suggested to include the American Heart Health Month proclamation, of which we have copies here for you. This is something that we discussed, Chair Hutchings, in our meeting, and There was some discussion as to whether this item would be most appropriate for the Board of County Commissioners or the Board of Health, and Kurt Harden, Director of Emergency Management, and I collaborated to bring this forward to Board of Health. So we have this draft here for you, and with your acceptance of the suggested amendment, Lydia will update that online in the agenda.
Anything regarding that? Adding the Board of, or American Heart Health? Questions about that?
No.
I'm okay with that. However, I need a guarantee that you'll have a conversation with Kurt Harden regarding no surprises.
Kurt
Yeah,
Harden.
yeah, don't be coy.
Kurt Harden will accept the proclamation and provide some information on CPR, and we will also be suggesting that that be our county Wear Red Day, and we will encourage all of our guests at Board of Health to wear red in honor of American Heart Health Month. Cardiovascular disease is the #1 leading cause of death for men and women in Thurston County, so this is very important to raise awareness about this issue.
If only I had a red sweater. Anyway, okay. Anything, Gary?
Not on that topic.
Nothing? Okay, thanks. All right. And do you need to explain the dental proclamation?
Yes, you also have a copy of the dental proclamation. February is National Children's Dental Health Month. And last month you approved a contract with the Arcora Foundation for Thurston County Public Health and Social Services to engage in a program with local schools to reduce oral health disparities in children. And Leslie Price, our public health nutritionist, will be here to present this proclamation and to raise awareness about the importance of oral health in children and the long-term health impacts that it has.
Okay. Anything?
No, sir.
Nope. All right. Thank you. Then we get down to the opportunity for the public to address the Board of Health. Are you aware of anybody that has a burning issue, wants to come in and address the board?
I am not aware of any.
Yeah.
We possibly could hear from concerned individuals about the biosolids application that Department of Ecology is thinking about approving out in the Bald Hills area. And in further discussion of that particular item, I would like to see the Board of Health at least write a recommendation letter that we would be opposed to that application of biosolids if for no other reason. The meeting I attended about a week ago, the Department of Ecology readily admits they have no understanding of adverse impact of pharmaceuticals in this particular product, and there are a lot of pharmaceuticals that are in these items, and yet they were willing to go ahead and allow this application to take place, and I think that's pretty irresponsible.
You have any comment regarding that? Because I know I would benefit from hearing from both sides. I mean, just what you say, you know, and we talked about last week, is appalling. But I'd like to hear the other side of it to get more information.
Yeah, you may recall you had a briefing on this particular project where you instructed the staff to draft a comment letter in exactly what you're stating. But if you prefer, I don't think the letter has been submitted yet. It's in the process of being drafted with the very specific technical comments as to why this particular permit has not addressed all the environmental concerns per se. Because really right now is what they call is the public comment on the mitigation of no significance, and that is the result of the SEPA process, the State Environmental Policy Act. So with the mitigated or no significance, it appears that they have not addressed a lot of items the Commissioner Edwards is stating. What are the impacts of this particular permit to the environment in terms of the water, even the air and everything else? So I believe that letter is going to be on those terms. perhaps arguing against that determination. If you like, that letter can come from the Board of Health if that is your desire.
I guess my concern was that we double whammy if we can, one from the Board of County Commissioners and one from the Board of Health. That's all, just to make sure they realize that I don't think they're going to be willing to put this on their lawn to make it green, so.
And that might be a good approach, because the letter that the staff is preparing is very technical. Technical in terms of addressing some of the specific items related to this particular permit. Perhaps that might be adequate for staff or the director to sign that letter, and maybe staff can draft a letter for the Board of Health in larger terms as to what will be your message opposing this particular permit.
No, I've gotten input from various places. None of it's been positive, and it relates to issues not even dealing with pharmaceuticals. Just there's
a lot of
a whole
other
bunch
issues,
of concerns that I have.
Right.
So.
I like the double whammy, the double barrel shotgun approach. I really do. And number one, I don't know if there's a time issue to that. You know, how soon that is going to get out.
Art can answer the timing, because there is a time element on when the comments should be submitted.
But I still don't know why this has moved to this point, and I want to hear someone speak to the other side saying this is the best thing since bladder boats. Okay, because I don't see that being there, but I want to hear someone spew it. But I'm in favor very much of sending it from a policy level as a Board of County Commissioners, but also from the public health arena as well. Go ahead, Art.
So I'm Art Starry, the Environmental Division Director for Public Health and Social Services, and the public comment period ends at 5 o'clock on February 13th. So
Ooh.
A day after your Board of Commissioners, Board of Health meeting next week. And as Ramiro indicated, staff are in the midst of preparing a letter with concerns and comments. We've met with Ecology, we reviewed the applications. Two of us were at the hearing on the 24th, and so we think we're quite aware of the proposal as well as the state rules that apply, and the ecology review process and where we think the application falls short. And so that's what we're preparing now. I've been drafting that in concert with Patrick Soderberg, who's with our solid and hazardous waste program, and Kevin Hansen, who's the county's agriculturist.
All right.
And what I was hoping to do is have that drafted sometime this week, and I could send it to you for review or whatever you would like to do, whether you want to, so you can see what's in it, if you want to, whatever your pleasure is regarding the comments that we're preparing.
What I believe is the commissioners would like to see is go ahead with the technical letter providing technical comments, and that will be from the staff point of view, but also draft a letter for the Board of Health to sign. And the letter will be a little bit of, higher level in highlighting the concerns that you've heard today. So if we can get that letter by the end of this week for them to review and sign it, that would be great.
Okay, I will hear that. Or I'll move to the next.
Comment? Question?
No.
Gary?
No, sir, sounds like a plan.
Thank you.
Do we have to, let me ask you, do we have to, now we can send it out straight away from the BoCC, but do we have to wait for the BOH to meet the day before? We can still send that letter out.
No, I think this setting is adequate.
Yeah.
You're meeting as a Board of Health right now, reviewing the agenda.
Good.
You provided that direction. So
Right.
does
And we wanna
not
be
need a formal action on your Board of Health.
And we want to be solid, biosolid. We want to be solid about we are anti this. Not like kind of soft soaping, mamby-pamby.
I don't know how to react to that comment.
Okay, that's my hope. There we go. Okay, that takes care of the public address. Do you have anything further, Art?
No, I've been told to stay, though. There might be
Okay. Number 4 is consent items A through B, A and B. The acceptance of the work study or the work session notes from January. And then B is approval of the Washington State Department of Health Memorandum of Understanding Group B Water Systems Program. There you are.
So when we talk about
Well, I'll just introduce it, and then if you have anything further to add, Art, that would be great. So the full memorandum of understanding has been approved by Jane Butterman at the prosecuting attorney's office, so you do not yet have the full MOU in your packet. But what we are asking is for the board to renew this MOU that we've had with the Department of Ecology, or yes, the Department of Health, excuse me, not Department of Ecology, for our Group B water drinking program. And Art is here to answer any questions that you may have about that.
Looking for questions? Questions?
Can you just kind of outline what this is?
So, in the
That's a
state
good
of
enough
Washington, in the state of Washington, public water supplies there's kind of two general groups of them. There's Group A water systems, which are large water systems such as the City of Olympia or City of Yelm, and then there's something called Group B water systems. And they're generally referred, most of them are ones that serve small communities. They serve 14 connections or less. There's also Group B water systems that serve things like camps or something like that, where they may operate for less than 60 days a year, where they're serving a population of up to 25 to 1,000 people. And so what happens is that the state, through a delegation agreement, allows us to have authority over those sort of small water supplies. And we found that to work quite well because we're more familiar with our community, provides resources in the county as opposed to the state having to spread their resources over the whole state. And so we've had that in place for a number of years, and in support of this we actually have a local ordinance called Article 3 of the Sanitary Code that helps us make sure that we're monitoring and maintaining things properly and that water systems meet the appropriate standards. And so the agreement actually expired at the end of last year, and it needs to be renewed so that we continue to have the authority to oversee this program.
Would there be any changes to that MOU?
It's pretty minor. It's the basic same thing that we've had for a number of years, and it works in concert with the consolidated contract that we have that provides funding for certain activities, along with our annual permitting system for the 579, I think it is, Group B water systems that we have.
579.
It's a good basic public health program, and it provides resources here in the county.
You say we have 579 that we...
579 Group B water systems.
And the system, or the changes you said are very minor. They're not of any import or content
no, it's
change.
basically a rollover of the existing agreement. It just needs to be updated. And so the state, through the process, most agreements have a renewal date just to make sure that they're updated to reflect current changes in practice or code. In this case, the things are pretty minor.
Okay. Anything else?
No, sir.
All right. Don't go away. It looks like on number 5, on department items, we're back to, we're doing an adoption, asking the legislature to support local public health services.
Yes, we are proposing that the Board of Health adopt Resolution H-1-2019, urging the legislature to support foundational public health. Art Starry will present this item because he is the legislative representative for the Washington State Association of Local Public Health Officials, also known as WASOLFO. This is very important to us here in Thurston County and to the Board of Health, we believe, because it provides critical funding to key programs that we have, including environmental health, infectious disease, and assessment. There was an assessment by Burke Consulting last year that all the local health jurisdictions in the state participated in, indicating if public health were to be adequately funded in the state of Washington, it would cost $450 million. The request that the Washington State Association of Local Public Health Officials is recommending that the legislature adopt for this session is $100 million over the biennium for the state to provide these critical public health services that only local public health jurisdictions can provide. This is the first generation of children that we have that are anticipated to live shorter lives than their parents in history because of the type of diseases that we are dealing with. The resolution also highlights several different activities that and emergencies that have impacted us here in Thurston County that have cost extraordinary resources that are not adequately funded. So we are asking that you support this. Many other boards of health and local health jurisdictions are also adopting these resolutions so that we can encourage the legislature to fully fund this request that we have. In the previous biennium, we received $150,000 for Thurston County, and it is not sufficient.
All right. You want to go first, Romero? Do you have more framing? Okay, go ahead, Gary.
How does this fit in with the Association of Counties?
This is one of WASAC's top legislative priorities this year that they have adopted in their agenda as well.
And I take it they're sending the same thing and the other membership
Yes.
groups are sending the same?
Yes.
Attached to the package is a Foundational Public Health Services brochure from WASAC. So it mirrors what this is art again. So in the board packet is a pamphlet or flyer from the Washington State Association of Counties that talks about foundational public health services. And it basically mirrors what Wasalfo is doing. So as Shelley indicated, it's one of their top 3 legislative priorities for this year.
Thank you.
I would like to change. I'm glad there's a call to action rather than just, hey, give thumbs up, we support you. There's a call to action for the $100 million for the biennium, but I would almost put that into the action. I'd like to have that in there because it's pretty much telling them this is what we expect. But go ahead.
As you may recall, this is also part of the Thurston County legislative agenda. There's right now House Bill 1497 that is it really addresses this particular issue. There is a hearing scheduled for February the 8th. That will be this Friday. And I don't believe, if I may suggest, that don't wait until you take a formal action related to this resolution, but just go ahead and support this bill as stated. And I will ask Deborah Manguia to go ahead and support this bill. And also maybe we can ask Art to go ahead and provide testimony on February the 8th, this Friday, in support of this bill as well.
Go ahead. Yeah. Oh, good. Yeah.
I can try to do that. Excuse me, Shelley. As far as the bill, as far as the bill hearing, the Association of Counties and Wasalfo and the Department of Health, they've orchestrated a lot of work on the bill already. I don't know if I'll be able to fit in, but I can certainly let folks know that we're in support of this. If you'd like, I can draft a letter for you, or ask the Wasalfo and as well also indicate Thurston County is a strong supporter of this, the bill and the Foundational Public Health Services. So we can do that easily.
Yeah. Okay. You get 3 thumbs up.
All
there.
the above.
Okay. Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Art. And department item number 6, we're going to bang through the rest of this, not much, and then we'll take a break. Food and environmental services, we have Sammy come in.
Yes, Sammy's going to provide an overview on the Food Environmental Services Program. And so that includes not only our food inspection program, which you're familiar with, but also our vector program, our school program, and our water recreation facilities.
Oh,
so
good.
he has a PowerPoint and will give you a broad overview of all the amazing things that group does.
Very good. Questions, comments? And number 7, Board of Health related activities. Oh, that's when we share our stuff. That's health related. And number 8 is the health officer's report. We have Dr. Wood in the house. Nice hair. Yeah. And then we have the director's report with sufficient time.
That's correct, sir.
Good. And do you have any idea what you'll be talking about?
I will just be providing a brief overview of some of our program and department highlights over the last month. And Dr. Wood's report will include an update on measles, flu, emergency preparedness, and the opioid response.
Good. That's what I was going next. I have that noted down here. Thank you, Doc. Thank you, Shelley. And then we're going to adjourn at just about 5 o'clock. That concludes the agenda for BOH. and it's 10:06. Let's take 10 minutes for break, and then we'll come back and finish up the rest of the agenda setting or the work session. See you in 10 minutes. Okay, welcome back. It's still the 5th of February. We're moving on with the agenda setting. And I'm deviating from the program, and I'm going to bring up Deb Vinsel from Thurston Community Media for a presentation. Welcome, Deb.
Hi, how are you?
Fine, how you doing?
Look, I'm great.
Good.
Great. Happy New Year, as much as it is.
Yep.
Well,
Thank you for coming in, by the way, for a briefing.
My pleasure, my pleasure. This is the first of what I hope will be kind of a regular thing throughout the year. Maybe twice a year or 3 times a year, just to kind of keep you up to date on what's happening within the walls of Thurston Community Media and how our services are evolving. We are ever grateful for the partnership with Thurston County and the other jurisdictions, Olympia, Lacey, and Tumwater, for making community media, community video and television possible for the citizens of Greater Thurston County. So this is just kind of a snapshot about 2018. We're in the process of wrapping up our year-end bookkeeping and all of that. So I just wanted to come in and give you a little bit of a snapshot of our successes and work in 2018. We changed our membership structure a couple of years ago, and it is bearing fruit. We had 149 individuals join as new members at Thurston Community Media last year, and 155 individuals renewed their membership, so that was nice to see. We also had 71 nonprofit organizations and government agencies who were members of Thurston Community Media and using our resources and facilities. One of our primary charges in our contracts with the local jurisdictions is to provide media education for youth and adults. We offered 41 classes for adults that resulted in 180 certifications, and there's a little chart there that shows you the numbers. Some of the classes have small enrollment numbers, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that we may only have one specific piece of equipment that we're trying to teach people on, so you have to craft the size of the class based on how many people can actually lay hands on the equipment to learn what they're doing. We offered several special classes last year that were not for certification. We require individuals who want to use the equipment that we make available to go through our training program and be certified by our staff so that we can be assured that they can use the equipment safely and be successful in what they're trying. But in addition to that, we've had requests for what we call enrichment classes. So we did things like bring your own device, which was, show up with your iPad or your cell phone, and we'll show you how to best use it as a media capture device. Photoshop, we did one-on-one individual trainings on a variety of things, and one that people liked. We had one person come in who asked for this specifically, is a program called GarageBand, which is a music composition program that comes with all of our Apple Macintosh computers. So that was a fun class to offer. We also continued our summer program for youth, the Young Producers Network. We had to contract our program last summer because of changes in our staff. So we only offered 4 workshops, but the workshops for the older students between the ages of 12 and 16 were extended to full-day workshops instead of half-day workshops. And we programmed that through a partnership with the City of Olympia and City of Lacey Parks and Recs Department. They do the registration and promotion for the camps, and they were fully enrolled with wait lists for all of our classes. We're hopeful we can grow it again a little bit this year, but we just needed to keep it tidy and a little bit smaller last year because it was a busy year and we had a limited staff to work with. In 2019, I just put a note here, we are adding a new staff position. We've gone through a staff restructure. We said goodbye to 3 longtime staff last year for a variety of reasons, and it gave us the opportunity to look at our staffing structure and consider what we really needed to expand our capacity in areas that we felt needed to be expanded, and to also provide better services to the jurisdictions who support us, who provide support. So we are bringing on a new media education and community production coordinator, and we'll be looking at our media education program and overhauling it in light of the lightning fast changes in technology and media in general, so that the training program that we offer really does speak to new and emerging technologies and effective ways to use new media platforms. It will all result in programming for the channels, but we're looking at ways that we can, be a more 21st century media center. As far as our facilities are concerned, the use of our facilities and equipment continues to be robust. We had more than 1,400 reservations by Thurston Community Media members in 2018 to either use our facilities, which would be our edit suites and studio and control room on site, or to check out the portable equipment that we make available to certified members. That resulted in more than 52,000 hours of use. And if you applied a rental market rate to the use of that equipment, it was over $2 million in market value for the facilities and equipment that we make available to community productions. Of course, after people get trained in using our equipment, we want to make sure that there's programming that goes on the channels. We manage 4 channels on the Comcast cable system and 3 channels on the Fairpoint system, which is out in the greater Yelm area. The programming on those channels is divided up based on the primary user of the channel. So channel 3 is government programming. That's where you see the county commission meetings and city council meetings and those type of things. Channel 22 is our public access channel. That's where programming by community residents and nonprofit organizations is scheduled. 26 is Tumwater TV. They have a channel. That was a franchise negotiation 20 years ago, I think. That channel was established, and that is for the city of Tumwater government and Tumwater schools. And then Channel 77 is our newest channel. It came online probably about 10 years ago. We call it Community Affairs and Education, and that's the channel where programming created by the Thurston Community Media staff for either our contract clients or programming that we do in the public interest, like candidate forums and community festivals and events. That goes on Channel 77, in addition to programming from local educational institutions or programming from educational institutions that is relevant to what we're doing here. The bottom line for all of that is in 2018, we programmed across the 4 channels more than 16,000 hours of programming. We had 1,130 first run hours, and that's programming that appeared on our channels for the first time ever. 878 first run programs, so the first time that they aired. Of course, the 16,000 includes programs that have been previously scheduled and repeats. So we have a robust repeat schedule. If you don't see it at 7 o'clock, you can probably see it at 4 o'clock tomorrow. And then I've broken down for you where the programming comes specifically from our government agencies. Last year, Thurston County had 81 first-run programs on the channel. Of course, many of those were county commission meetings, but also programs like County Connection and trying to think what else. Oh, the Meet the Directors program and public service announcements that we did for each of the departments were part of that. We also, the board of directors of Thurston Community Media and the staff recognize that our environment is changing faster than you can keep up with sometimes, not just in the evolution of technology and distribution mechanisms, but the regulatory environment is a little bit volatile right now. So we are in the middle, the board of directors is in the middle, we're actually closer to the end of a strategic planning process that has a really heavy emphasis on sustainability, evolution, financial resources, resource development, and we are planning to fully implement that plan early this year. Our board has a retreat coming up at the end of this week, and fingers crossed we'll kind of cross the T's and dot the I's on that strategic plan and move forward with it. We are ever grateful for the partnership that we have with Thurston County, and look forward to being able to provide services to you in the continuation of our contract. The changes in our contract last year really helped to move things forward for us. This year, I don't have the financials. We're finishing up our financials. There's black ink at the bottom of the balance sheet, so that's a good sign. And we will continue to be entrepreneurial and trying to diversify our resources in order to be able to continue to provide services to Greater Thurston County. So that's pretty much it.
Well, before I get to you guys, I want to turn to the PIOs that work closely with TCM, and can I go to them first?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead, Megan. Anything, do you have any questions or comments?
I would say Megan represents the county on the Thurston Community Media Board of Directors, and she's been a really good addition to our board.
I didn't know that.
Yes,
Yeah.
she has really good ideas and is really clear in a lot of the conversations that we have, so I greatly appreciate having her on the board.
Thank you, Deb.
I'm just deferring to you in case you had any questions or comments.
No, we've just been working really hard to build our relationship and continue to make it a little bit stronger. This year we used more than 1,500 hours. We're allotted 1,700. Last year it was around 1,100, and prior to that it averaged around 800 hours. So the amount of production that TC Media is providing for us is increasing immensely. And so we're really using them as an asset in order for us to get our story out. So thank you to them for providing us with that great service.
1,700 this year alone? Or 15?
1,500 for 2018. We
Oh,
used
18,
1,500
okay.
hours.
Okay.
But this year, we're working on a plan to use all 1,700, so.
Oh, good, thank you.
For Commissioner Mentzer's edification, what we're talking about is in the service contract between the county and Thurston Community Media, we guarantee 1,700 hours of our staff time to work on projects and productions for Thurston County. So in 2018, 1,500 hours of that time was utilized to come up with those 81 programs and put that programming on the channel.
Got it, thanks.
Gary?
You missed out on a good interview the other
Oh,
day.
I'm so sorry. I know, I was so looking forward to
But
that.
Robert did well.
Yes, I'm sure he did.
Did very well,
He's a
yeah.
great interviewer. He does a good job. I was in Long Beach, California at a media conference.
Oh, yeah.
so, you know.
I do have a question. Do any of the governmental entities that oftentimes are maybe required to run a bond issue, a school, a municipality, park district, or do any of those, I know the government entity maybe cannot be involved, but they sometimes have support groups
Right.
that, are they allowed to access and utilize TC Media?
Absolutely. Nonprofit organizations, and most of those organizations are structured as some kind of a nonprofit, like a foundation for education or something along those lines. They are absolutely allowed to use our facilities and resources to communicate the message.
And so they can be promoting their particular point of view.
Absolutely.
Does that happen quite often?
We haven't had too many of the educational foundations come in, not specifically for those kinds of things, but I would say a couple of years ago when all of the local school districts joined together in their marketing campaign for Yes on Schools. You saw the black and yellow signs everywhere. Two of the friends of the schools, or the kind of nonprofit support groups, came in and talked about how the levies would impact the school districts and to encourage people to consider supporting students.
How about municipalities with maybe a park district or a swimming pool or whatever?
Well, I think you're only limited by what campaign law would require of you. So if you can't advocate one way or the other, but can provide information about, what it is, how it would be used, and, where the money goes after the fact, there would be no reason you couldn't do that, but you would certainly need to be careful about campaign
But a
laws.
group that is in support of one issue or another could
Yeah, absolutely.
come in. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just
Now,
curious.
I would say those kinds of groups would come in, and they would be, we would treat them as community members, not as government, and they would be programmed on the public access channel with all the
Okay.
other community groups.
Thank you.
Hi. Question? I have two questions. Number one, when you say if you don't see it at 7, you'll see it on some other time the next day.
4 o'clock, yeah.
It seems like when I turn the doggone TV, and you guys, and TCM has come a long way since TCTV in the last 30, 34 years, a long way.
Thank you.
But when I turn on and there's opera and the arts and that really
Oh,
vintage stuff.
You happen to tune in when we're using Classic Art Showcase.
That's what it is.
We have a couple of programs that appear on our channels that are delivered to us by satellite. Classic Arts Showcase is a satellite delivered arts-based programming that is a free service. We kind of stumbled onto it 20 years ago, and free programming, free is always good. It's funded by a foundation. And they make their programming available to public interest channels and to PBS. And it was, one of the comments we had gotten from folks was they didn't mind seeing the reader board, but our reader board and message service pops up in between programs because we don't have commercials on our channel. But they, some folks felt like some of our channels, as they were developing and they were heavily programmed, that they'd like to see something else. And Classic Arts was a nice way to kind of fill some fallow time. We download a chunk of programming twice a week, and then it repeats in a variety of slots. It's kind of an MTV format, short, 2 to 5 minute. Could be an aria from an opera, or a pas de deux from a ballet, or a clip from a classic film, or something along those lines.
But it's all vintage.
And it's a lot of it is, yeah. And it has been a very, very popular service. People have really appreciated it.
It's so odd, and I can't take my eyes off it. And then my wife walks in. What are you watching?
Yeah, it can be a respite, I'll tell you.
It's very
Some of
interesting.
the other stuff.
Weird enough, I like it. But 2 other questions. One, if I know there's going to be a certain program on about a certain time, I'm not able to DVR it when it's.
Right.
Is that going to change anytime?
I hope. We hope.
Before I die?
That is, we're trying to come at this from a couple of different directions. One is through the cable franchise renewal. The existing franchise is a little bit limited in how it defines the electronic programming guide and our access to it. So as the cable franchise is being negotiated, that is certainly a point of interest in having our schedule identified on the channel. But I'm also trying to come at it from the other side, which is literally the writing the check side of it, and working with the provider of that service to see if there's a way we can develop a relationship with them. Normally, the providers of those services work with the channel operator, not with the programming providers. But Grace Note, who does the channel, does the electronic programming guide for Comcast, has expressed some willingness to work with individual programming providers. So I've been having some conversations with them to see what it's going to look like and potentially how much it would cost.
And that was a great segue, because my final question is about cost. And when it comes to the electronics, this is all through you folks, right? When are we going to get new additional microphones?
Megan and I were just talking about that. We've had, I sent an email that I thought had gone. Evidently, we've missed a connection somewhere, but we've been talking about it, and we've kind of come up with a plan.
Okay,
So
I'll back out of it then. I just want to be sure.
It won't take, there's been a snafu.
That was not a setup, by the way.
No, I appreciate that.
No, it
there
wasn't.
was a snafu, because we were talking during the break, and she says, we need this, and I go, well, I sent that before I went to California.
Oh, that's funny.
But I also did share that we're in a transition in our internet connections at the studio, and it occasionally drops unexpectedly, and sometimes you don't know what's happened. So I'm presuming that email was just floating out there in the ether someplace and never
Okay.
landed.
So
Yeah, we will, yeah.
it's imminent.
Okay. In the
Got it. Thank you. Thank you, Deb. Any comments, questions, concerns from anybody?
No, sir.
Deb, thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you for your support. We look forward to a continued relationship.
All righty.
Thank you.
Proclamations and awards. Oh, this is the proclamations. This is the, we're supposed to checklist what we wanted in suggestions and such?
Correct. This is La Bonita Beaumar, Clerk of the Board for the Board of County Commissioners, and in front of you, you do have a list, and in your packet, you also have a list from the Board of Health. With the Board of County Commissioners today for February, we only have one proclamation. March, I'll be working on the Women's History Month, as you gave me direction last week, and I have heard back from Commissioner Hutchings.
Is the microphone working?
Yes.
Okay, it is. Thank you. Thanks, Deb. I wanted to say that loud before too much.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. And Commissioner Menzer has given, his assistant has given me the direction of what he would like to see on the proclamations for 2019. I am waiting for Commissioner Edwards' assistant to give me their confirmation of what they would like to have, and then I'll be giving you a complete outline what will be coming up for 2019.
Okay.
So that's about all I have right now for proclamations and awards.
Okay. Questions, comments? Nope. Okay. Proclamations and awards. Okay, now we're moving on to advisory boards now.
Yes.
Okay.
In your packet, you discussed last week the Civil Service Commission. There are 2 potential applicants. There is only 1 vacancy. You asked for political affiliation regarding this particular board per RCW. We have 1 member that is a Democrat, and we have another member who has identified themselves as a moderate, not identifying either or, unaffiliated, moderate. So this leaves us open to being able to appoint either one of these members at your choice.
And that's either Stacy or Glenn?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead. Questions?
We had a chance to interview both of them by phone, and they both seem stellar, so I'd like to hear your guys' input, because I wouldn't know quite how to decide between them.
Yeah. You want to go first? Okay.
Well, I mean, because we're dealing with law enforcement issues with the Civil Service Commission, I think there's a certain benefit to having the background of a law enforcement executive that has retired from that field of work. The individual's been very active in other community events, and I just think he's a good fit to bring knowledge and background to this particular position. So I would be inclined to support the retired law enforcement officer.
Who is that?
Glenn.
And I don't know
Glenn
Stacy.
Kramer.
Okay, I don't know Stacy. I'm not going to presume male or female, so I don't know her if it's a he. But I don't know Stacy. But in reading the not the resume, but the application and such, the individual sounds very, very qualified. But I personally know Glenn Kramer from working in with the nonprofit together. Yeah, since about 2008, 2007, 2008. And I know he's retired WSP, and before I figured that out, I've known him to be very apolitical as a board member, and then together as board president. Very apolitical, but didn't even know one side or the other, and I still don't today know what side or the other he's on. But he is a former civil servant from years or decades, and has the experience, and in my mind, he's very thoughtful and pensive. He doesn't react, he responds. He's very mature that way. I'm not saying the other individual isn't. I'm just saying I know Glenn to be that very thoughtful, pensive, and digging, asking probing questions and such, and understands the profession, understands the civil service rules and such. So my bend is towards, I'm leaning towards Glenn. I'm not leaning. I would vote for Glenn in a heartbeat. That's me.
That sounds good. I would defer to my seatmates.
So would you like to bring this decision this afternoon or for next week?
This afternoon.
Okay, we'll bring this afternoon.
Good, thank you. And what else? We have the reappointments to deal with.
Yes, we
Or
have
to settle.
3 reappointments. The first one is for the Historic Commission, Robert Kirkwood. He's been on that board since 2010.
And wants to be back on, sounds like.
Wants to continue. I'm okay with that.
No problem.
And Board of Equalization, reappointment of John Morrison.
Yes.
And again, he's been there for some time, and I've heard.
He's been an active member on that board.
Okay, I'm okay with that reappointment. There you go. And agritourism, Diane Weaver and John Borden.
Both of those members would like to be reappointed. Their staff up to that board is looking forward to your decision.
They're active as well.
Yes, they are.
Yeah. And I'm okay with both of those as well.
Okay.
Good, done.
So we'll bring those on your consent agenda today.
Thank you. Thank you, La. Public hearing decision pending.
There's none, Commissioner.
Okay. Legislative update,
Yeah.
county manager report.
Hopefully I can be brief on this, but a lot to cover. As you may know, the governor signed into law House Bill 1064 yesterday, and that is related to what they call the FIX bill of Initiative 940, which deal with training for law enforcement. When Initiative 940 passed by the voters this past November, I think it put into perspective as to how they need to come together and reach an agreement. The House and the Senate passed unanimously this bill, and the governor signed into law again yesterday. Related to the annexation legislation, there's House Bill 1357 and the companion bill, which is Senate Bill 5249. That is related. That is what I call the Lacey bill, where they remove the 45-day referendum period. There's also, and that is scheduled for February the 6th, tomorrow, to have an executive action. Also, there's similar bills that Thurston County has supported, and there's House Bill 1598, and the companion bill is Senate Bill 5522. And that is related to annexations as well, but a different spin. It does not deal with removing the referendum. What it does is it states that we need to have an agreement with a jurisdiction, or the county needs to have an agreement with a city as to how we can agree on the boundaries related to any annexation. It appears there is a little bit of a resistance to the bills sponsored by the city of Lacey because of moving the 45-day referendum. There seems to be a little bit of a hump on that bill. However, on the bills that the Thurston County is supporting, 1598 and 5522, seems to be support to that. The chair of the committee, Representative Pollard, will sponsor the House Bill 1598, and which has a clause in terms of poor counties, more than 100,000 population, or cities more than 25,000, that agreement will take into place. There is a suggestion to change that by Senator Taco, which removes that the threshold of population. It applies to every single county, to every single jurisdiction. So overall, I believe the annexation bill that perhaps bring a benefit to Thurston counties moving forward.
That's good to hear, yeah. Questions about that?
No, very good, thank you.
So related to the judicial impact fees, and there is Deborah Manguia has several meetings scheduled with Representative Dolio, Senator Hunt, Rachel DeBoll, Representative Orcutt, Andrew Barkes, and as well Representative McEwen. So related to the judicial impact fees, I was talking with Deborah last week in a brief report. What she has stated is perhaps we need somebody, a champion in the Senate, meaning a senator can actually champion this process. As you know, the judicial impact fees are included on the supplemental budget as well as on the biennial budget. And so it is important, as she has stated, that perhaps a senator can probably champion that effort in the committee. And perhaps she mentioned Senator Hunt may be that champion. So I request that perhaps one of you, the commissioners, have a relationship with Senator Hunt, can reach out to him and I'm looking at Commissioner Mintzer, perhaps, they perhaps having a conversation with Senator Hunt as to how he can probably champion this effort while they consider, in the Senate, they consider the supplemental budget as well as the budget, the biennial budget coming up. As you know, this is very important for the county as the number one legislative priority for us. So it does represent $1 million, a little over $1 million a year, positive impact to the general fund. There has been a little bit of feedback that she received from the Republican side of the House, of the Senate, Deborah. Perhaps one of the assistants mentioned that, you know, if concerned that perhaps we'll open up the floodgates because other counties will request this. And my response to that was, well, other counties don't have the capital city of the state in their boundaries. So it's a little bit different. So what she strongly suggested again is they perhaps, we need to find a champion on the Senate, and again, Senator Hunt perhaps was mentioned as such. So if you have the opportunity to connect with him,
take a shot.
I will encourage you to do so.
And that's just tomorrow is the hearing on the impact fees, or is that was the other one on the annexation?
On the annexation, that is tomorrow.
Okay, so we're looking. We have no date for the impact fee yet.
Well, the judicial impact fees are included in the budget, on the supplemental as well independent. So there's not really a bill, but it's.
Oh, got it. Just being.
We'll have somebody, need somebody in the Senate as well as in the House to champion that as they consider all the many different aspects of the budget.
Go ahead.
Are we also going to have somebody that's one of the Superior Court judges possibly that could help with this?
Yeah, they actively supporting this effort.
Well, yes, but I mean actually talking to Senator Hunt.
Yeah, all that. So I'll reach out to Josh Schaller.
Okay, good enough. Thank you.
And also, I believe on the other side is Senator Braun is also maybe another person who can probably champion that effort. So I may ask you, one of the two of you, if they have any connections with Senator Braun, to reach out to him, and also, and at least we'll have a champion on both sides of.
Yeah, and I'm more of a contact with Hunt than I am Braun.
So
I don't know that gentleman.
So and that was the message from Deborah related to that particular bill.
So these senators are on the Ways and Means
Yeah.
Committee, and that's the point, is
Yeah.
to have someone who's in the caucus at the time the Ways and Means bill is being written. That's when we need someone who's going to be in that room to advocate for funding for us. With Senator Hunt, I think he's a good choice, but we need to make sure that he fully understands this because he was our advocate last year until he wasn't. And there was a misunderstanding on his part about what it was we needed, is how it all shook out at the end. So be sure when you talk to him to ask him if there's any information at all that we can provide.
And is there a deadline? There is a deadline, though, and what do we know of that?
They're probably working on the budget now. It'll come out at probably around the end of February. The first cutoff's on February 22nd.
Okay.
And it'll come, if not right around then, probably a week later.
And also the aggravated merger costs is also part of it, be included in the budget. But if I may, you know, asking for this, my suggestion will be to be laser focused perhaps on the impact fees, and so when you reach out to the delegation, be focused on that, because my suggestion when we ask for more, you know, gets a little bit too confusing. So
and this is particularly unique to Thurston County.
It's unique. There is really, it's absolutely unique.
Okay.
Yeah.
Questions?
Do you have a one-pager of that that is very
That's what I was
specific?
about to ask for.
Yeah, I'll give you
I
one.
know I've seen it, but
One
I
pager,
would
because
have trouble figuring
on
out
the
where.
back side of the one pager really has a comparison between the like counties as to how much cases here in Thurston County are filed because of the proximity of the state capital. So I'll give you a copy of that, and I'll give you a copy of that as
Could
well.
you give me a copy of the committee assignment on that? Which senators are on that?
Okay.
Thank you.
Ways and Means, sure.
Okay.
All right, got that?
So that's that. Also, there is a House Bill 1628, and this is have a hearing on February the 6th. And as you may recall, there was a similar bill last year where the county opposed that bill. And this is related to having a buffer on the military installations, where it really hampers the ability of the county to do any type of development. Meaning there is the related to what we call the JLUs, that is the joint land use studies, where really within a buffer of the military installations, we need to have an approval by the Department of Defense if we wanted to implement any type of land use or code revisions. And those are the bases in which I believe we opposed that bill last year. When this is a retooling bill, and the only thing that includes is access to grants, for us to access grants to do the same thing. So I recommend for you to oppose that bill, and again, it's House Bill 1628. Because that really puts a hamper as to how the ability the county may have and see how the land use regulation should be applied to all the county, regardless of the proximity to the installation, military installation.
Okay. Anything else?
Yes, I have quite a
Oh,
few.
keep going.
Sorry.
All about you.
Also, there is House Bill 1718, and that was introduced, I believe, last week. And this is the retooling of House Bill 2006, as you may recall. In this particular bill, what it does, it provides cities and counties flexibility on the current funding options that we have in place. And I have used the House Bill 2006 all year. That it was very close to be approved, and for some reason didn't. And all of us can speculate as to why. But really addresses a couple of issues that are related to all the current funding the county utilizes, and addresses the issue of supplanting, as you may recall. So, and allows a little more flexibility in the supplanting requirements. When we did this analysis last year of the House Bill 2006, it created additional capacity in the general fund of just about $1 million. So it is a good thing. It really doesn't increase any financial capacity. I mean, doesn't give us any additional funding, but really gives us the flexibility for you, the legislative authority, to make decisions to create capacity within the general fund. So I personally am happy to see this bill is coming back up again, and certainly with your concurrence, I will ask Deborah to fully support this bill. And again, it's House Bill 1718.
Yeah? You okay with that? There you go.
And also, sorry. And also, there's going to be introduced a bill that will address the 1% property tax, and with a cap of related to inflation. We've heard from WASI, although this bill was perhaps introduced last week, that it's going to be heavy lifting this year, but we will need to continue to push for that aside.
All right.
Did they say what the bill number is?
No, I don't have
number
the bill
yet?
number. No number yet. Also, there is a bill on House Senate Bill 5055, and that's related to the Behavioral Health Organization. I touched base with Mark Freeman yesterday. He's in fully support of that, so I'll just give you an update on that as well. There is also a bill related to Senate Bill 5505, and this is related to the stormwater fees that we collect from DOT. And the fees are related to about $270,000 a year. And what this bill is proposing to do is give DOT the authority to determine how the fees should be spent and what projects, which is not adequate. Because this is our stormwater fees, this is the impact their facilities causes to the county. So we certainly going to be opposing that bill because that doesn't bring any value to us.
I guess my argument to that particular piece of legislation would be that others that pay into that fee don't get to select.
Yeah, I think that piece of legislation has a lot of, it's like a Swiss cheese as far as I'm concerned. A lot of holes. So.
Anything? Okay.
Briefly. Lastly, the House Bill 1135 appears to be, this is related to the wrongful injury of death. As you may recall, this bill extends the benefits of any particular wrongful death to surviving members, family members, and any type of litigation. That really has an impact on our risk, from a risk point of view. And although that we can probably oppose that, and what we heard from WASAC is perhaps that it is going to pass because there's a strong support at the House as well as at the Senate. And as they stated on Friday, it's very difficult to fight with these tragic stories from family members by losing a family member due to negligence by a jurisdiction. So just to give you an update on that, that is moving forward. There is also House Bill 1667, and there's related to public records request. As you may recall, there was a couple of years ago, the legislation passed related to public records, which allows the counties to, charge 10 cents for every gigabyte that we produce. I think it took us, it will take a lot more money to just process the 10 cents per every gigabyte that we submitted. But also within that legislation was a requirement for the counties to produce a report on a yearly basis, which was very onerous. And your public records team on the prosecuting attorneys has been very effective in providing that. So this particular bill lessened the requirements as to the level of reporting that we have to do related to that. And that's all I have for you related to the legislative report.
Go ahead, Gary.
Is there any chance that we could get a one-pager from you with those particular numbers of the legislation and a very short caption and maybe this or something? I took a bunch of notes here, but they pretty soon got complicated.
And, on the bill numbers, as well as just next to it, oppose or support?
Just a real short, something to have in our pocket.
Yep.
Okay.
Now we have a doctor and a director in the House. I'm going to move it up to get them back to work. This is measles?
Measles.
Okay, please come on up.
Good morning again, Commissioner.
Good morning. Welcome back.
Thank you. Shelley Slatter, Director of Thurston County Public Health and Social Services, and with me is your Health Officer, Dr. Rachel Wood, and to my right is Sue Pointer, our Emergency Preparedness Manager, who is serving as our Incident Commander for this current potential measles outbreak. So we're here today just to give you an update on the measles situation throughout the state and how that relates to Thurston County and what we're doing and what we're expecting. Last week, you received a issue alert indicating that we had 3 suspect cases of measles in Thurston County. 2 of those came back negative. 1 we expect to have results later this afternoon. On January 28th, last week, Governor Inslee declared a state of emergency for measles for all counties in the state of Washington, including Thurston, due to the large outbreak in Clark County. So Clark County currently has, as of last night, 49 confirmed cases, 9 suspect cases, and King County has 1 confirmed case. There's also cases that originated from Clark County but are now in the state of Hawaii, Oregon, and Georgia. So this is a highly contagious infectious disease, so we are very concerned about the impact this may have on the citizens of Thurston County, particularly young children and vulnerable people. And Dr. Wood's here to answer more questions about measles itself, but I just wanted to share with you that even with a suspect case, we are taking this very seriously. We activated our incident command back on Wednesday, January 30th. So we are meeting daily. We have a 24-hour operational period where we are assessing the situation and preparing our response in anticipation for a positive result. And I will pass it over to Sue and Dr. Wood for further information.
Good morning. Just Shelley kind of gave you a recap, but what we did stand up our emergency operations plan for our department, and really what that does is assist that particular division that, again, our disease control and prevention division that does this all the time. And so what we end up doing is bringing additional people in from the department to help support. We also have a big component in fiscal that's important as well. But if a case comes back, and we have currently no confirmed cases in Thurston County, I want to share that. If we have a case come back, it really sets us on a different track, and it's very time intensive. Besides the fact that the infection control group has regular ongoing work, so diseases don't stop. We don't stop getting reportable or notifiable conditions call in. So, and we look at kind of leaning forward a little bit on that. I also want to share with you why we are tracking that in Thurston County and prepping up for that. There is also this large outbreak in Clark County, and we have deployed 6 of our medical reserve corps volunteers. So that's kind of a separate track from what we're doing in Thurston County, but collaboratively, who have gone down and are supporting Clark County Public Health in terms of case investigation, et cetera. And I won't get into the details of case investigation, but it's been very successful. They've come back and debriefed. And this could be, they could ask for MRC, Medical Reserve Corps deployment for at least 6 to maybe 12 weeks at the rate they're going. And we just got confirmed today that they have another confirmed case. There are 50 cases in Clark County. I also want to share with you too that we were able to pull one of our staff away, Jennifer Dixon, who's actually going to come next week or at some point and share with you all some of that experience. We deployed her down to Clark County, and she is sitting on their response team as a deputy ops chief. We were able to break her free a little bit because for them, they're really stretched in terms of staffing, et cetera, on how much they're doing in response to that. But I think we're ready in terms of Thurston County, and we have a great staff of our infection control group. But again, if something like this were to trigger, you definitely can see that we need more staff to come and help that.
Thank you, Sue.
Good morning, Rachel Wood, Health Officer. I'm happy to answer any questions about measles. Just know that mathematical modeling as to how infectious it is with influenza, we use a phrase called R naught, or R with a little 0, and it's how many people are infected with this contagious illness before we know that the first person has it. And the R naught is 2 with influenza. With measles, it's between 12 and 18.
Wow.
So if you're susceptible to measles, 90% of the people who are susceptible and are exposed to measles will get it. And then it keeps spreading, or in happy epidemiological terms, it's propagated. So that's why standing up to respond is very important. We don't want to be behind the 8 ball when we get a result, a laboratory result that comes back positive. We have been communicating with our medical providers who are on heightened. We get our nurses deal with a lot of calls from medical providers. There's a really great worksheet so that we can determine, well, do we need to test this individual? And there's a bunch of criteria. I wanted to add to what Shelley and Sue have said, in that this is actually a statewide response. We have many staff that are sitting in on statewide calls, like our public information officer for the health department is sitting in on health-wide calls. Our liaison officer for the health department is sitting on statewide calls. I sit in weekly on health officers' statewide calls. So we're sharing information, and our intention is to have some consistency as much as possible around the state, even if we make our own decisions here locally. One area that the health officer or authority extends to that is another public health tool besides staying home, covering your cough, stay home when you're sick, get vaccinated, is exclusion. So isolation and quarantine. And the difference between isolation and quarantine, isolation pertains to a person who is already sick. And they usually are happy to stay home because they don't feel well. Quarantine applies to the individual who's being exposed but doesn't feel sick yet. We know that those who get sick with measles are infectious for 4 days before the rash onset. And the prodrome, or the symptoms that come on before the rash onset, is so much like anything else that we might get this time of year. Fever, chills, sore throat, runny nose, red eyes, cough. You know, that could be any number of things. It could be whooping cough, it could be influenza, it could be some run-of-the-mill virus, or if you're susceptible to measles and you're exposed to it, it could be measles. So that is just one more area that the health officer might be called upon to act to use a public health tool. So with that, I will stop, and if there's questions, I'm happy to answer.
What is if you get measles, how long does it last, or what do you do about it for people that are infected?
Yes, so from exposure to onset is anywhere from 7 to 21 days. So, and once you usually start with a high fever, then you have sniffles, you may have a cough, may have red, irritated eyes, and then 2 or 3 days later, maybe 4 days later, you'll get a rash that usually starts on the head, the face, and then moves downward. And then what you need to do is stay home, drink fluids. There's no treatment once you have the measles. It's mostly supportive. Certainly if you have complications from the measles, then you may need treatment for that. So some of the complications from the measles may include ear infection. You could have, some people get diarrhea, and then rarely people get pneumonia or meningitis and problems with the functioning of their brain, and very, very rarely death. So has that answered your question?
And I misunderstood, the 7 to 21 days, that's how long it lasts, sort of?
Well, no, that's, so.
How long does the symptoms last?
The symptoms will last 7 to 10 days if you're a healthy person. Okay. So once you get sick, you can be sick for 7 to 10 days. We consider people who have measles, we usually, unfortunately, are counting backwards unless we're monitoring closely people who are susceptible, who are exposed. From the day of onset of the rash, you're considered contagious for the 4 days before that rash. The day of the rash is day 0, and 4 days after. So there's a 9-day period that you could spread it to other people.
So children get vaccinated, right, for
Correct.
MMR, right? Measles, mumps, rubella?
Correct.
I remember having to do that. Is this just because some folks is this a resistant strain to that, or are some people a lot of people aren't vaccinated?
You're asking a good question. So in the early 2000s, we declared measles was done in the United States, but we're a planet, and any infectious disease on the face of this earth is only a plane ride away from any of us, wherever we are. So we often have the people who have had measles, either people from the United States or people from other countries coming into this country with measles. There have been pockets of people who are not immunized. So if measles is brought in, then among the groups of people that are not immunized, it'll spread because it's so infectious.
So is part of our response trying to get people to be, or encouraging people to get immunized that
yes.
haven't?
So we have sent out a couple of updates to medical providers, and we have sent up updates out to the schools, and we have an article was published in the Health Matters column in the Olympian that came out this past Sunday, saying, really, now's the time to get immunized before it hopefully doesn't, but before it may arrive here in Thurston County.
And those immunizations last for your lifetime, or?
You know what? Measles is a wonderful vaccine. With one shot, 93 out of 100 people are protected. With 2 shots, 97 out of 100 people are protected, and that lasts for the rest of your life. Other types of viruses that we have immunizations against don't work quite as well, but I'm grateful that the measles vaccine is so effective.
Do most people get 2?
That's the recommendation. It depends on how old you are. We recommend the first dose around 12 months of age, and the second dose right before entry into kindergarten. And so, yes, in terms of vulnerability, infants under the age of 12 months are considered more vulnerable, and pregnant women and immune-compromised individuals. Although infants under the age of 12 months, if they're breastfed, they will get some immunity from their moms. And so that's one of the reasons we don't vaccinate until 12 months of age, because they're circulating antibodies from the mom, and the vaccine isn't quite as effective. Although in outbreak situations, we could consider vaccinating at a younger age. That's not currently recommended.
Does more vulnerable mean they're more likely to get it, or it's more dangerous to them if they do get it?
Well, more vulnerable would mean if you haven't had the vaccine, you're going to get it if you're exposed to it. Well, 9 out of 10 people will get it if you're exposed to it. So that isn't a vulnerability. And your other part was, are you more likely to have
the children under 12 months, I was thinking, is what I'm asking.
nastier consequences?
Is it more serious consequences?
It could be. Yeah, more hospitalizations.
Those are my questions. Those are my questions.
Okay, go ahead, Gary.
Can you address or dispel this myth about autism or something?
I can. There was an article that came out suggesting there was a link, and then that has been disproven and shown that was false information. I can't quote those for you right now, but I can certainly find them for you because they're easily available.
Well, I'm thinking more for the viewing public, so they might not be so concerned about having these immunizations.
Thank you for asking that question. I would advise the viewing public to consult with their healthcare provider and ask about that, because it was debunked many years ago and said, no, that was not scientific information that was promoted saying that autism was linked to it.
So you would recommend everyone to get an immunization
Yes.
that has not had it?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, definitive. You addressed for me already up front the kids in quarantine and family quarantine, so you already addressed that, thank you. Are you in, when it comes to vaccinations, people consult their primary care physicians, but can they go to the pharmacy?
Yes.
And do the same doggone thing?
We would recommend that they call ahead of time, because pharmacies that carry it may run out and have to get more. But the state Department of Health is keeping tabs on the availability of the MMR vaccine, and there's no shortages. Just that if you call, you know, X pharmacy today, they may not have it in supply. You may have to call Y or Z pharmacy.
So there's plentiful out there unless someone has run out.
Yes, and it will be temporary, and they would get more in.
And I imagine you're in contact with the schools on a regular basis.
They
or
know
they
how to
contact
how
you.
to, excuse me, sorry.
That's all right. They contact you or you contact them?
We have sent out one update, and we are we're monitoring the situation, and we're certainly available for phone calls from the schools. And if they need more information, we're happy to send out another update too.
All right, and my last question is, are you getting inundated with phone calls then from the public? With concerns or questions or advice, guidance?
Not at this time. It's manageable. So anywhere, it just depends. Anywhere from 5 to 10 calls a day, and it just kind of really depends. And your PIOs would know this on the news cycle and how quickly things pick up and people that have a concern. And I just wanted to make one comment about the 50 cases in Clark County. The majority of those cases that have tested positive are in children or young adults who are unvaccinated.
Yeah.
So.
See, somebody got that cough, doctor.
Yeah. It's a tickle. And I forgot what I was going to say, Bob.
I'll ask her a follow-up question.
Unvaccinated kids.
Yes. 46 of the 50 are unvaccinated.
There you go.
All right. Any other questions? Go ahead, Gary.
Oh, I did have one other thing. So we're not overwhelmed with calls right now, but currently I'm happy to say that we do not have anybody with active pulmonary tuberculosis that we are aware of in this county. Should we get that, we could tip over, because there will be a diversion of resources to address that issue.
You know, every time you walk into this room, when you leave, I'm smarter than when you first came in. And I learned about R naught. And I think that's pretty cool, R naught, and what that means. Influenza versus measles or some other disease. That's pretty cool. Anything else?
Nope.
Okay.
Is there a cost to this immunization for individuals?
Under the Affordable Care Act, immunizations are covered by those who have health insurance. However, not everyone does have health insurance.
Well, okay, then I'll ask it another way. I mean, because we don't want this to spread, is there a way that if somebody felt they needed an immunization, but they did not have funding to do so, is there a way they could call and we could get them a shot, trying to be a little preventative about this rather than reaction?
We do have, at this current time, we don't maintain it. You know, during the summer, our Medical Reserve Corps, along with our Public Health Initiative, we do 3 back-to-school immunization clinics and really provide that as a no cost. I think looking at if a pharmacy or a provider is a vaccine for children provider, which is a special designation, and they receive vaccine from the Department of Health as well as the CDC, kind of that pass-through, they can ask for a reduction in that cost. And I would suggest that if there is ever a hardship, that they ask, whether it be their provider or whether it be a pharmacy, whether they have any kind of program that could help support them if they can't afford that copay, or if they actually have no insurance. It's a question to ask. But currently, we are not offering out of public health MMR vaccine.
But if somebody wanted to get vaccinated, they could call a number, a location, a website or something, and inquire, because I would think that'd be a heck of a good expenditure of money if we could prevent that.
our website, as well as the State Department of Health website, has information about where people can get vaccines and a number to call. And we also have staff available to answer questions to the public to help support them in that if they need it.
Do you have a number, or do you not give out your number? What's the deal?
Our main phone line would be, yeah. The main phone line of public health, 867-2500.
And in the article that came out in the Olympian on Sunday, there is a link to a place called Vaccine Finder that will tell you by your location, the nearest places you could go for the vaccination.
Okay, but the Olympian has a very limited circulation. Could you say that number again, the phone number for the viewing public?
Yes, our department number is 360-867-2500. And anyone that calls that who wants information about measles, there's a prompt for them to select so that they can get direct information. They can also go to our Thurston County Public Health website, and also on our social media, our Facebook and Instagram has information as well.
Is this information that maybe has been relayed to our schools?
Yes.
Okay, good enough, thank you.
Has Thurston done another one? 20,000, something like that? 250,000 way off. Yeah.
Due to the governor's declaration and the statewide emergency, all major media news outlets right now are covering this, and there is broad information. But yes, we are continuing to push preventive information out to the public.
Is Thurston Talk considered a, what'd you call it, media? You had a term for that, for the media. What did you just say? Outlet.
Media outlet,
Are
yes.
they considered a major media outlet?
They would be considered an online blog.
Okay.
It would be more of a blog situation than actual news media.
All right, thank you. All right, thank you, Sue, Shelley, Doc, thank you very kindly.
Thank you very much.
For your interest.
One final thing is we will not send another issue alert unless we have a positive confirmed case, but all of you and your aides are now included on our daily situation report that we are sending out from Incident Command. So you can read that, and there's probably more details than you may ever want to know about this. But we will keep you informed, and also I just want to say that our team at Public Health is doing an amazing job. They're handling this very well, and we're prepared for anything. So thank you very much for your support.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Lacey annexation, can we move to that?
Yep. And Commissioner, this is a follow-up to the Lacey annexation that you were considering. As a matter of background, the graphs that you have is option 1, option 2, and option 3. Option 1 was the original request by the city of Lacey. You had a discussion where staff presented you two options, options number 2, options and 3, where, again, the county is not opposed to the annexation. It's really dealing with the purpose of not creating islands as a result of those annexations. You had a discussion, and you invoke, as staff invoke jurisdiction on this annexation, and based on the premise of option number 3, which is larger than initial one. Just for the record, that was a 2-to-1 vote in terms of going with invoking annexation using option number 3, because I believe the Senate Commissioner was looking for option number 2, not necessarily opposed to invoking jurisdiction. It was just between number 2 and number 3. Just for the record, I just want to clarify that. The result of that was, as soon as the county invokes jurisdiction, then puts a timeline for the Boundary Review Board to hold a public hearing and determine what that is. Within that process, also, you requested staff to reach out to the city of Lacey to see where we can work together in terms of this particular annexation. I have used this particular annexation as a depiction of some of the bills the county will is currently on the legislative agenda dealing with islands as a result of annexation. So staff is ready to give you a briefing or a report as to the conversations that have occurred with the city of Lacey. And I received this email late last night. I couldn't include it in your packet. And this is related to this annexation and the perspective from the city of Lacey related to the financial impacts on the different options. Okay.
So what you have in front of you there is information from the city of Lacey. The overall takeaway from this discussion, thank you very much, is that as directed by the Board of County Commissioners, I did engage with my counterpart, Rick Walk, in the city of Lacey. The discussion that the board had with me was invoke jurisdiction at option 3, but work to find potentially the middle ground towards option 2. And so what I can say today is that we've had initial positive discussions, and that we'll know more on Thursday when Rick is able to take this information about amending the boundaries to his city council. So we don't have a final next step forward quite yet, just kind of know that they've provided their concept on the cost financial impacts of the different 3 options, which is in front of you. We are working with our sheriff's department and other budget folks to look at those same numbers and the ways that they got to those costs and provide our perspective on what the financial impact is. But we don't have that yet. So know that we're going forward in a positive direction. The city of Lacey is being a good partner, and we're working to find a collaborative solution.
Can you explain what these numbers, like what Lacey would be arguing these numbers mean exactly?
I don't know about exactly, but I can provide a summary.
Conceptually,
yeah.
what it is that they're trying to argue here.
So we have the different alternatives, and I'll have Jeremy Davis explain the overview of it. But essentially, like I said, this is their perspective on the different taxes and expenditures that they'll either be receiving or losing, depending upon each one of these different boundary lines. And so I'll let Jeremy go through the details of those different topics. You ready?
Sure. So we did receive these from the city of Lacey for alternatives 2 and 3 on Friday, and then alternative 1 and the other 2 by email yesterday. And so what Lacey did is they went through and they looked at what their overall general fund revenue or expected general fund revenue would be from the annexation area, as well as other revenues, and some projected startup costs for them. And so for their revenues, of course, they went and looked at what utility taxes they may gather from the area, as well as their property taxes, any B&O tax, online sales tax, any state shared revenues, possibly some expected building permit revenue, although it's very low, given that the whole area is very well developed, and also the stormwater fees they could receive. Then they looked at what overall expenses they would expect on an annual basis from each of the 3 option alternative annexation areas. And so they went through and gave an estimate for the number of police officers that they need, how much the street maintenance is going to cost, and general government services, and what that annual cost means to the city. They also went through and looked at what their startup costs would be. So if they have to have police officers, they have to have a car for the police officer, and so on. And they based some of these on population estimates for there. We do have an average household size in Thurston County of a little over 2.5 persons per household. So it's a reasonable measure to use when you're doing estimates for services based on population. In any case, they went through and came up with those estimates and how much it would cost for them to serve. And so each of those 3 alternatives have a initial deficit associated with them on an annual basis according to city estimates. And then also they did an estimate for their startup cost, which adds more dollars, I think, than what's actually in the email. So for their first year, they had an annualized expense of about $245,000 or so, with an initial startup for the first year of about $487,000. And then for alternative 2, they had their annualized expense at $346,000, with a total first year cost of $680,000. And I'm reading right off of their spreadsheets, and I already want to share this with Robin, quite frankly, so.
I'd like to see them.
Yeah, and I asked the city of Lacey for their spreadsheets as well, so I can provide those to you.
Thank you.
So to Jeremy's point, this is an evolving topic. So we're getting this information, and to the county manager's perspective, we're getting this information as it's coming to us. We're trying to react and compare apples to apples. So we're in process.
So just to summarize, they're basically saying you're gonna save quite a bit of money, and we're gonna lose quite a bit of money by annexing these territories, and it's gonna be more. What is that? The parentheses means a negative, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And it just goes up as we add the option 2 and 3.
So they provided us information based on the scenarios that we provided them, alternative 1, 2, and 3. I'm not sure that there's an editorial statement in there other than just the facts of it. But what I have heard directly is that they will likely be interested in working with us to amend the boundaries. So what you've got in front of you is the details, but the overall scope of this is that we are trying to find a path forward together.
May I just add something real quick, now to get you, Ramiro, but this estimate is based on current zoning, development, and population, not intended or proposed use.
Yes.
Correct. Okay. Ramiro, you were wanting to go.
Yeah, and that was the point I want to make is if you see the spreadsheet, it speaks about the assessed value, and that's the current conditions. But the potential of revenue generating, that's really needs to take into account, because this is not a snapshot in time. The annexation will happen 1 year, that's it. It's really what the long-lasting consequences, positive or negative. So I think the analysis from their perspective is accurate for one snapshot of the situation. But what has been unsaid is the potential revenue they generate, but all the Ostrom's farm, for instance, when the Ostrom's farm moves out, that is an incredible piece of property that can generate a lot of revenue. So I just want to highlight that.
I made that point. You guys made that point, so I made that point in a discussion I had, and was told that that's not necessarily the plan for that property. It is commercial development. The city has plans for it.
And there's right now the baseball fields. There's empty no longer in existence. Behind the Ostrom's farm is a lot of empty potential land. So the point is, that may not be the plans, but certainly the potential is there. And from my point of view, if there was such a detriment, for the city, they have a $245,000 impact on their current budget without seeing a benefit into the future. Why?
Why would they?
Why? I mean, and really that's a basic question. Why? Because in other instances, when it's developed land, they have not taken that approach.
I guess I'd just like to plant the seed that just think about if the potential was utilized, say for some type of retail, for an example. Let's just say a Costco. I know there's a Costco already close by, but just say they were to put a Costco in there. I'd like to see the numbers that might produce, which would be unbelievable. Such a benefit to us. If they don't think it'd be a benefit to them, why annex it?
Go ahead, Ron.
Is there a problem that our lights are all red?
The battery they're flickering. The battery's down.
I looked over. I think Commissioner Hutchins is also.
I'm green, but I don't know.
Is Deb still in the house? Good question. So I can talk loudly. Can you?
I can talk loudly, but I don't need to. So I think that Romero expressed the thing that I was going to say, which is, if what they're saying is that they're going to lose about $250,000 a year just with their initial proposal, then why would they even be going down this path? It's not a credible.
Green.
I understand what they may have shared with you. I also remember, was it 2 years ago when we had dinner with the city of Lacey where they said that they'd be annexing these neighborhoods, and now they've decided it's not a good deal for them.
Yeah.
And I'd just like to reiterate that I am not against the annexation, or annexation even in general, as long as it's well thought out and equitable. But I am not anti-annexation. And I'm glad you keep saying that, because that's the mantra, not against it.
Well, that's part of GMA.
Yeah.
Right.
All part of fairness.
Anything further?
Nope, CPED staff will continue to work with the city of Lacey to find a collaborative path forward.
All right. Great, thank you very much. Thanks, Jeremy. Thanks, Josh.
Thank you.
For Commissioner, for the sake of time, maybe item number 5, I can bring that for next Tuesday conversation. It's not urgency in that, but certainly have a conversation on the name of the courthouse project. That would be good.
And I don't have any burning. I have commissioner items, but not burning issues. Do you have anything burning? Otherwise, we'll go into the executive session.
Yes, I'd like to review with you the planning session for February 7th.
That's
the
right,
agenda.
here it is.
So let me.
All right, yeah, the February 7th planning session.
Yeah,
The,
and this
homelessness.
is the planning session, which is going to be held here in this room at 10 a.m. And I changed that from the Tila campus, considering the subject. Your planning session is going to be specifically related to homeless issues. And we'll begin at 10, and let me just walk you through the agenda. We'll begin with introduction and expectations. The expectations, if you may highlight, this is not an opportunity for the public to provide testimony. This is for you to gather information. So there is not an opportunity for the public, again, to address to the board. We'll begin with really information and gathering from the City of Olympia, which they will highlight the mitigation sites, the Plum Street Village, the homeless response plan, as well as the home fund. Then we'll have a working lunch. We may break probably 5 minutes just to grab a sandwich. We'll provide a sandwich and a salad. That's already underway. And then we'll have from 12:30 to 1:30, the cities of Lacey and Tumwater will give you also their perspective as to how they're dealing with the homeless issues in their jurisdictions. 1:30 in the afternoon, the county staff will give you a perspective of all the many different programs they will have in place. You've heard last week, in 2018, we issued $6.8 million related to housing and homeless issues. So staff will walk you through specifically as to what those programs are. And also, it will start having a conversation related to the 2019 Affordable Housing Homeless Services RFP. And that is related to the home dollars conversation, the CAP and everything else. And that is the request for proposals that needs to be going this year. And at 2:30, really we're going to start having those conversations with you among yourselves and the staff. And staff will give you what is the role of the Board of Health, because as you heard, we provided received public testimony as to what the Board of Health should take this as a task. So staff will give you a briefing on the role of health. And also then we'll have a conversation in terms of potential mitigation sites the county may consider to be part of the overall solution, whether it's with the City of Olympia, City of Lacey, and Tumwater. And along the way, I received some documentation from the City of Olympia related to some of the land use code comparisons. I will walk you through that because some of the mitigation sites may have some hurdles that perhaps you as a commissioners may need to consider in changing some of the land use codes. In 2018, based on everything what you've heard during the day, if there's an opportunity for you to provide direction to staff as to how the 2019 request for proposal process should be implemented to start addressing some of the homeless issues. And lastly, at 4:30, hopefully we'll take some good notes, and we'll have action items in the short and long term based on your discussion and direction.
All right. Go ahead.
I would hope to, on the 1:30 to 2:30 section where we're talking about Thurston County programs, somebody directed me to take a look at the Thurston County Comprehensive Plan section on housing, and I think we should review that together briefly, just because it was 2010, and it's stunning how many, how many of the things in there are directly relevant to what we're dealing with, and I'd like to know, I'd like to talk about, what did the board ever take action? Are there things in there that are still useful to us to guide our discussion?
Yeah.
And I have a copy of it on my desk if you need it, but.
Yeah, absolutely. Give me the code number.
It's our comprehensive plan, the 2010, the housing section.
Okay, housing section.
I mean, we're dealing with new issues, but apparently not all new issues. That's it.
I got a few questions, and my questions are just relative to what Ty just said. I see from 10:15 to noon, we've got information gathering at Olympia with the homeless response plan. That's their homeless response plan. Later in the afternoon, are we to be discussing our 5-year plan?
Yep.
Okay. And this is kind of a trifold question. From Olympia, Lacey, Tumwater, and even our Board of Health, so maybe 4. Do we know who is going to be coming from each jurisdiction, who will be speaking to the issues?
Yes, and in fact, we're currently working on staff from each of the jurisdiction will come and address and bring presentations to you. So we're still working as to who. Are you looking for specific names or what?
Well, I didn't know if the mayor, Mayor Selby, is showing up along with staff
they
and council.
Might be. This is open to the public, so there may be some council members as well as the mayor. But I did express to the city managers, this is not really a forum to have a conversation at that level, if I may. It's really for you to hear the details of the issue and for you to start forming an opinion as to what steps you may want to take in short and long term. And
that was my concern, is that if we have the mayor or staff from each city with several representatives from council, if it's an open forum, we're not going to get much done.
No,
I want to get to the meat of this as well.
That's what I stated to the city managers, Commissioner.
Okay. No, thank you. And then the last thing, I just want to spit out kind of what I would like to walk away with personally from this, and that is relationship and trust building throughout the county relative to this issue, and comprehension of the overall issue and the plan and successes and what hasn't worked. And then a roadmap to the future, and then discuss potential, maybe at a later date if we don't have the time, financial strategies.
Yeah, so this perhaps is going to be the first of many planning sessions that you will be working on this issue. So let me go back to your suggestion. You want me to add those items on the agenda, or this is something you're planning to?
This is something I want to walk away with.
Okay, and that would be a good objective to have, and at the end, we'll revisit that objective with you and see if we have met that.
Okay, but the big thing is the relationship and trust throughout the county on this issue. Anything further, Ty?
No.
So any changes to the agenda in addition to the comp plan, the Commissioner Menser added to the agenda? Anything else on the agenda?
No, not for me, no. Nope.
That's going to be a packed agenda, and again, I encourage you to maybe just have 5-minute breaks here and there, just to have, but really it's going to be a long day, and I personally am looking forward to this particular conversation.
Oh, has the print media been invited?
We're going to be broadcasting this, the whole thing. So
We're
it's going to be a live streaming. And we need to announce that as soon as possible. This will be the case, so they can probably, anybody who wants to come or be part of the conversation, they can just do it on their own.
Oh, I got that. But can we send an invite to the Olympian?
Certainly.
And deliver it.
That can be done. Yep.
All right, thank you.
Your PIO will manage that.
Thank you,
Or one of them.
Thank you. Anything else for the good of the order then?
No, that's all I wanted to cover with you on this.
All right, great. Then with that, we'll read that later. No burning commissioner items?
No.
Okay. Then we'll just move into executive session.
I did have a, for you.
Of course.
Sorry. There is an invitation from the Experience Olympia and Beyond, Shauna Stewart, CEO. And the invitation came to participate on the City Nation Place Americas. There is a conference related to tourism and economic development, and that is going to be held on West Hollywood, California, on June 5th and 7th, 2019. Considering this was addressed to Commissioner Hutchins, the invitation directly, but considering that he is going to participate on the trip to China, perhaps it may be an opportunity for other commissioners to attend this training. So, and that's what I'd like to see who of the two might be interested on this. If none of you, then June 5th and 6th, 2019.
I'm just, I'm going to be attending a conference in July related to transportation through inner city transit. Just throwing that out there. It's a Sunday through Wednesday.
Hawaii?
No, Boston.
Boston, wow.
But so I wouldn't jump at this chance. But if you need somebody.
But if the commissioners are busy, we can certainly ask staff. Josh, perhaps, may be a good fit, or maybe at that time, economic development manager could also be part of that when we hire that person.
That makes sense.
So I give you all the options.
That was the option I was looking for.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay.
Perfect. Great solution. All right.
That's all I have for you, commissioners.
I want to hear it again. That's
on,
all you
on
have?
that.
Okay. All right, thank you. This concludes the work session. We're adjourning this, and we're going to go right into an executive session.
Microphones off, please.